everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today's True Crime Spotlight is the Australian backpacker killer Ivan Milat. He is commonly thought to be the most notorious murderer people think of when they think of Aussie serial killers due to the shocking nature of his crimes and the number of victims. There is a lot of speculation that there was indeed a second accomplice that was never captured, and many believe it was in fact another member of his family. So, who is Ivan Milat, Australia's most notorious serial killer? Let's dive in. Ivan Robert Marco Milat was born on the 27th of December 1944 in Guildford, Australia. His parents are Croatian immigrant Stephen Milat and Australian Margaret Elizabeth Piddleston. He's the fifth child of his parents and one of 14 children in the family. From all accounts, home life is chaotic with so many children, and discipline is hard to enforce. The family is poor and lives in a shack home in Moorebank, Sydney. The Milat boys are known to the police as young delinquents who are often in trouble with the law, breaking into homes and stealing items. The family has a love of guns and knives. At 17, Ivan is sent to a juvenile detention centre for theft, and when he is 19, he is once again in trouble for breaking into a local store. In fact, Ivan is continuously in and out of jail for various offences, which usually involve theft of some sort. During this time, his brother Boris, the only Milat family member to have spoken out against Ivan, recalls that Ivan tells him that he accidentally shot a taxi driver in a robbery gone wrong. It's 1962 and Neville Knight, a retired Army Morse code expert, is now a taxi driver. He picks up a 17-year-old boy who sits in the back seat. As he's driving along, he is shot from the back of the car. Knight survives but is paralysed as a result. Ivan tells Boris that he accidentally shot Knight, that the gun had misfired. What's more, an innocent man sat in jail for 5 years charged with this offence, whilst Ivan roamed free. On Good Friday, April of 1971, Milat is 26 and is charged with kidnapping two 18-year-old backpackers and raping one of them. He stunningly fakes his own death before fleeing to New Zealand, where he lives for a year. When Milat returns to Australia due to his mother's heart attack, he is rearrested on the kidnap and rape charges. The trial finds him not guilty as his lawyer, John Marsden, shockingly outed the two victims as lesbians, as he himself, a closeted homosexual, saw them at a gay bar together. The jury acquitted Milat due to their prejudicial views of lesbians at the time, and he walks on all charges. Marsden later revealed in interviews that he regretted the successful acquittal as it paved the way for the murders that we are soon to learn of. By 1975, Ivan was working as a truck driver, travelling a lot, hauling tyres all over Australia, which some believe gives credit to him having more victims. Milat travelled to Goulburn, Canberra, Perth via Adelaide, Melbourne, Yass and Brisbane. He also works for over 20 years for the RTA, the Roads and Traffic Authority. Whilst working, he meets a 16-year-old girl who is pregnant with his cousin's child. They marry in 1983. By 1987, she leaves due to domestic violence, and the pair are divorced later that year. On January 25, 1990, a young man named Paul Onions got into the car with who he now believes was Ivan Milat. The British backpacker was looking for work fruit picking in Majilra, New South Wales, when he was offered a lift by Milat. Onions says Milat seemed friendly and a typical charming Aussie guy. The closer they got to Milat's killing ground, the Belangolo State Forest, there was a shift in the air, and Milat became tense and seemed on edge. As Milat begins to monitor cars around him through the mirrors, Onions asks if everything is okay. Milat responds that he wants to get some cassettes out of the back of his car because the radio cuts out in the area. This raises red flags to Paul, and he debates if he should get out of the car as Milat pulls over to the side of the road. Paul decides to stretch his legs and get out of the car, which alarms Milat. Onion debates if he should get back in or not, and says to himself, "What's the worst that could happen?" before sitting down ready to carry on the journey. It turns out the worst that could happen is that Milat comes back with a loaded gun. Milat proceeds to tell Paul Onions that this is a robbery, and without hesitation, Paul gets out of the car and runs. He runs into traffic, pleading with people who are passing by to help him. Many slow down to look, but don't let him in their cars. Paul is desperate and knows that this is a life or death situation, so decides that with the next car that comes, he is going to jump in front of it and make them stop for him. The car comes and Joanne Berry, the driver of the car, along with her sister and 5 children, rescue Paul Onions. She turns around and takes him to the nearest police station where Paul recounts the events. We'll pick up Paul's story further on. So it's the 1990s and technology isn't what it is now. No one has a mobile phone. Australia is a very common place to backpack through. It's a great way to travel the country for cheap, staying in hostels and hitchhiking to and from destinations. Many people leave their home countries for an adventure through Australia, but in the 1990s, 7 people won't return home. On the 19th of September 1992, the body of Joanne Walters, aged 22, was found by 2 runners who were out in the Belanglo State Forest orienteering. The following day, police find a second body, that of Carolyn Clark, aged 21, only metres from where Walters was found. They're both English backpackers who left their homes in London for an Australian adventure. They had last been heard of in April of that year. The murders had been brutal. Clark had been stabbed 4 times in the chest, 1 stab wound to her neck, and 9 wounds to her back that rendered her paralysed. Clark wasn't stabbed, but shot 10 times to the head. Authorities believe Clark was horrifyingly used for target practice. In October 1993, a man looking for firewood stumbles across bones once again in Belanglo. The 2 bodies that are found are James Gibson, 19, and Deborah Everest, also 19. The friends were from Melbourne. They had been missing since 1989. What forensic examiners discovered about the remains is shocking. Both were found in the fetal position. Gibson's spine had been severed with a large knife, and he had been stabbed several times to his heart, lungs, and back. Everest had been beaten so shockingly that she had 2 skull fractures and her jaw was fractured. She also had 1 stab wound. It is believed the stab wound wouldn't have killed her. It was the brutal beating that was her cause of death. A police sweep was conducted on the 1st of November 1993 and resulted in the discovery of another body, that of Simone Schmidl. The German backpacker, aged 21, was travelling with 2 friends. She was found in a shallow grave, having been stabbed 8 times, 2 of which were her spine and would have severed it. The other stab wounds were to her heart and lungs. Several days later, on the 4th of November, the body of Schmidl's friends were found. Gaber Neugebauer, 21, and Anja Haberschfield, 20, were found on a nearby trail in shallow graves. Neugebauer had 6 shots to the head and Haberschfield had been decapitated. To this day, her head has never been found. Due to the discovery of 7 victims in Belanglo, Task Force Air was set up by the New South Wales Police on October 14, 1993. During that time, there was a $500,000 reward for information, and warnings were given to backpackers to avoid hitchhiking along the Hume Highway. A profile was created to try and single out suspects. One profile believed that there was more than one killer, possibly even brothers killing together. On November 13, 1993, Paul Onions, back home in the UK, contacts New South Wales Police to recount his getaway from the man who tried to kill him. As we head into February of 1994, the task force has expanded to 33 investigators and 11 analysts, and there is interest with the Milat family. When Paul Onions recounts his story to police, he mentions the presence of a gun, and that the man called himself Bill. Ivan has a brother named Bill. 6 of the detectives working on the task force are assigned to investigate the Milat family. When looking at the Milat family, they looked at their criminal records. They discover Ivan has an extensive record with charges such as break and enter and steal, stealing a car, accessory to the theft of a car, armed robbery, and rape. When Detective Paul Gordon saw the court files on the rape case, he believed that Ivan Milat was the backpacker murderer. On February 26, 1994, Ivan Milat is placed under surveillance. Whilst this is happening, Paul Onions is on his way from the UK to Sydney to help investigators with their case. On May 5th, Paul is taken to the Sydney Police Centre and shown 13 images of different men and identifies man number 4, Ivan Milat. With this and the cooperation from Joe and Berry, the driver of the car that rescued Paul Onions, police have enough to charge Ivan Milat with the attempted kidnap of Paul Onions. The 2 women who were almost killed and raped by Milat in 1971 were contacted and asked to identify their attacker in a photo lineup. The women identify not only Ivan Milat, but his brother, Richard Milat. Police were then able to put a phone intercept on his home that he lived in with his sister Shirley. People to this day still believe Shirley or Ivan's other brothers were involved in these murders. On May 22nd, over 50 police officers and tactical defence officers swarm the outside of Ivan Milat's home, and after 3 negotiation calls, Ivan and his girlfriend, Chandler Hughes, come out of the home. Inside the home was a lot of incriminating evidence. Most of it was actually hidden inside the walls. There was a postcard to Bill, 38 .22 caliber bullets, some being the same as cartridges found in Belanglo near the crime scenes, an insurmountable amount of gun paraphernalia, a sleeping bag similar to one of the victims, a photo of Milat's girlfriend wearing a top similar to that of the victims, a map of Belanglo State Forest, a camera, cooking set, and stove belonging to a victim. Overall, as the Milat residents were all searched, it was found that there were over 24 weapons and 250 kilograms of ammunition. Milat was arrested and charged that day with offences relating to Paul Onions. On May 31st, Ivan Milat was charged with the murder of the 7 victims located at the Belanglo State Forest. Milat fires his defence lawyer John Marsden and uses legal aid. On March 26, 1996, the trial for the backpacker murderers began. The prosecutor is Mark Tedeschi. He is a very well-respected prosecutor who has worked on big cases such as Kelly Lane, Dr. Victor Chang and Kathleen Folbig. There was a very notable presence at the court every day from people wanting to see Australia's worst serial killer and watched a trial that stopped the nation. During the trial, Ivan Milat takes the witness stand. It lasts for 3 days. On June 13th, a green surgical glove found in Milat's Nissan Patrol is in question. Tedeschi asks Milat, "And I ask you, did you wear it by any chance in the crimes in the Belanglo State Forest in order to prevent fingertips being left?" Audible gasps was heard as Milat responds, "I wore no, I never seen the glove before," shocking everyone present in the room. Milat's defence argues that most of the evidence is circumstantial at best. They try to shift the blame to other Milat brothers, focusing on Richard. During the trial, over 145 witnesses take the stand for the 18 weeks of testimony that is heard. Several of the Milat family testify and attempt to give alibis. On the 27th of July 1996, Ivan Milat is found guilty on all 7 counts of murder. He was sentenced to life for each of the 7 murders, 7 life sentences. He is also found guilty of the attempted murder, false imprisonment and robbery of Mr. Paul Onions. He received 6 years for each, totaling 18 years. For some true crime stories, we would probably end here, but there is so much to cover with Milat's antics in jail and the chilling story of his nephew who ended up repeating history. Milat was placed in Maitland Jail, and on the first day of his sentence, he was beaten by another inmate. On May 16, 1997, he attempts to escape the jail with fellow inmate George Savas. Savas was found the next day hanging from his cell, and Milat was moved to the Supermax prison in Goulburn, New South Wales, that housed the most dangerous criminals. Milat has always maintained his innocence and appealed his conviction several times. His last available appeal was rejected on the 27th of October 2005. Milat continued to make headlines whilst in prison. In 2001, he swallowed razor blades, staples, and metal objects. On January 26, 2009, Milat used the plastic knife he had earned for good behaviour to cut off his little finger. He planned to send it to the High Court in the hopes it would force an appeal. It never made it there, nor did it make it back on his hand, as doctors deemed it unable to be surgically reattached. In May of 2011, Milat decides he wants a PlayStation, so stages a 9-day hunger strike. He loses 25 kilos, but doesn't receive the PlayStation. New South Wales Police strongly believe Milat has committed more murders than just those he was convicted on. In a bizarre turn of events that seems directly from a movie script, Ivan Milat's nephew takes a leaf out of his uncle's book. In 2012, Matthew Milat, 19, and his friend Cohen Klein, also 19, murdered David Archuleta on his 17th birthday. The victim is killed with an axe at the Belangolo State Forest. Matthew Milat kills David whilst Klein records the audio. Matthew Milat is sentenced to 43 years in prison. On Monday, May 13, 2019, Ivan Milat is moved from Goulburn Supermax to the Prince of Wales Hospital for treatment of terminal esophageal cancer. He is then transported to Long Bay Correctional Facility. On August 9th, reports come in that Milat was moved to a secure area of the Prince of Wales Hospital due to a shocking 20-kilo loss in the matter of weeks. Many believed he was close to the end. As of filming this video at the end of September 2019, Milat's condition is stable. He is still undergoing treatment for his cancer. The only member of Milat's family to speak out against him is older brother Boris Milat. In interviews, Boris has discussed his beliefs that Ivan is in fact a sociopath. He recalls Ivan torturing animals with machetes during his childhood. He said, "He was going to kill somebody from the age of 10. It was built into him. He had a different psyche. He's a psychopath, and it just manifested itself with, I can do anything, I can do anything. I knew he was on a one-way trip. I knew it was just a matter of how long." Ivan Milat's brutality makes him one of Australia's most notorious serial killers. Not only did he murder 7 innocent young people simply looking for adventure, but he terrorised them by severing their spinal cords, leaving them unable to escape his wrath. He maintains his innocence to this day, even signing off letters, Ivan the Innocent. He refuses to take responsibility for the deaths of the 7 backpackers, as well as other missing backpackers that police believe he is responsible for. With Ivan being close to death, police and the Australian public hope he will share his truth before it's too late. Do you think Ivan acted alone or had a family member help him? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching my video. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe and click on the bell. Clicking on the bell not only notifies you when I upload, it tells YouTube you're interested in my content and helps my channel grow. And until next time, bye for now.